Hello, welcome along to another Bangkok ChitChat, the YouTube channel from Thailand, all about Thailand. And to be honest, who would think that we're back Zooming each other because the pandemic seems to have taken a more severe turn this time around. But as they say, on with the show. I'm with Andrew, of course, as normal. And it's a Pattaya Report. And I'd like to say a big hello, good morning to Craig. How you doing, mate?
Hi, Craig.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So, here we are.
News? So what's the news from Pattaya?
Well, of course, like everybody else, I use the word well loosely. I mean, the situation is pretty dire here in Pattaya. Certainly, when it comes to the town side of things, the beach area and all the usual vibrant spots around are closed, as they are in Bangkok. There's no in-house dining anywhere. So the only places that are open for takeaway or delivery only. And yeah, very sad to see. I mean, like a ghost town again. You drive around the streets and there's no one to be seen.
What about the restrictions?
Yeah, I have to say.
Sorry. Any restrictions? What the restrictions have come in play?
Well, we're dark red in the Chonburi province, which I believe is the same as the Bangkok. I'm not sure whether there's any kind of additional restrictions, but I mean, gyms are closed, swimming pools are closed. To the best of my knowledge, it's pretty much back to where we were under the first sort of most severe restrictions, because you're not even allowed to go and sit down in a McDonald's and have a cup of coffee or have a breakfast in an establishment like that. It's purely takeaway only, purely delivery, and I believe that that's in place for a 2-week period with effect from, I think it was midnight on the 30th of April. So therefore, you've got next Saturday, a week on Saturday, you've got the new rules will be in place then.
It seems to me that like last time with a curfew, it was called a curfew. Now it's sort of come into nighttime restrictions. I've even heard yesterday a soft curfew. It seems to be that the government are suggesting things to do, but not actually making it law. Is that correct? Is that how I see it?
What I've heard, I believe there's something in the Constitution which says if it becomes curfew and therefore state of emergency or decree or whatever the term is, then there's some kind of obligation to assist people, which is perhaps why it's not being formalised, if you like.
I don't think there's a curfew as in you have to be at home within Pattaya or Bangkok by a certain time. But what I understand is that there's opening hours. Like, for example, supermarkets have to close by 8 p.m. depending on which province you're in. That kind of thing, yeah. So even 7-Elevens can open till 11, but they can open until 11 and then close and then open again at 4 a.m. So it's not a people curfew, yeah? But they are advising companies where
but there's nothing open between 11 and 4 anyway.
No.
So
and it also, like this time last year, it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was a national lockdown. In every sense of the word. This time it's more province by province. We've got the red zone, which is the embarrassing color, and then the deep red zone, which is the very, very embarrassing color. And then there's other ones, orange. I think that's about all. There's no other colors now. It's orange, red, and deep red. But it seems to be down to the province itself on how they react and whatever regulations they enforce. Is that correct?
I think there's a level of restrictions that are in place, such as gyms, bars, restaurants, or whatever being closed, and then that's kind of the minimum that the local government are allowed to or have to implement. And then if they want to increase that, they can, but they can't decrease it. It comes at a national level originally. So
okay.
So yeah, it's all pretty bad, really, and. I think when it comes to the travel restrictions, I don't believe there's any actual formal travel restrictions in place, but there's strong advice. Again, similar to what you were saying about the curfew, it's strongly advised that people do not leave the province unless the journey is essential. And I know from my personal perspective, because I tend to work between my office in Pattaya and my office in Bangkok, during the last period, we had to obtain paperwork which said that we were going to work in Bangkok, and that was deemed essential. And I think I talked about it in a previous chit chat that actually the process was very, very simple and very, very straightforward and only took about 5 minutes. My understanding is that that was implemented last week because a Chonburi rule, if you like, because anyone leaving Chonburi had to obtain that paperwork. But I've heard this morning, and I read something this morning, which said that's now been stopped because when there is checkpoints and people have obviously got paperwork, there's that fear that, you know, the COVID might be transmitted during those checkpoints. So they've said that they're not going to you're not going to need it anymore. So I'll double check if I plan to come to Bangkok next week. I think I have some important meetings I have to attend. I will double check whether I need the paperwork or not. If I do need the paperwork, I'll simply get it, and if I don't, then you know I'll just go without it.
Yeah,
it's a bit ironic, isn't it?
What I saw was the driving, you need written permission from the district office or village leader, yeah, and they're doing random checks, but more on the people who are returning or coming into Pattaya or into Chonburi as opposed to leaving, and they're supposed to have a checkpoint in Lam Chabang, and they're doing spot checks for testing, yeah, so and what there's been complaints about is
testing.
Yeah, this is what was reported, thanks to Pattaya Mail. Thank you very much. And they were doing some testing, but what the confusion is, not just within this, is the ambiguity, that people are complaining about. It's not clear. I think one of the things was like for these checkpoints, they were just waving some people through. How can you either stop them or you don't, yeah? Now, all the restaurants, as you were mentioning, the pubs are closed. And a lot of them, even when it opened up, they're turning around saying, well, we're not going to open up again until this is all sorted out. Because every time they buy beer or stock, food, whatever it is, and they close, they've lost that investment totally. It goes bad.
Logistical issues with your staff. You know, a lot of the staff maybe cannot afford to, to live in the, pay their rent on the rooms that they're staying in somewhere like Pattaya, so they head home to their family place, and the staff can't be going backwards and forwards every 5 minutes because there's cost of getting the bus and whatever it might be. So yeah, it must be a logistical nightmare for the
the bars are also, they're saying things like that because they're closed, they've got no money. Some are doing the streaming thing, yeah. But they're saying that also the people who are supplying the makeup, the clothes, and all the stuff that the girls normally buy, they're lucky if they can turn 150 baht a day. That was one quote. That's a good day. I suppose that leads on to you're homeless, Andy. Yeah.
Nice lead in there, Andrew. True pro. Well, yeah, this is from the Pattaya News, and I'll just read it verbatim here, and then you can chat about it. It says, local Pattaya residents are expressing concern for what they state is a rising number of homeless residents on the streets of the city, many of them having lost their jobs and place of residence due to COVID-19 measures, restrictions, and lack of tourists. Additionally, with hundreds of businesses shut, some permanently and others just temporarily, homeless are now sleeping and living directly around, in front of, and in some cases, inside of these abandoned premises. They say at the bottom of the article that there's an 80% drop of the local GDP because of the pandemic. So I haven't been to Pattaya, and I know you don't travel too much around, especially now, Craig, but is it like a sort of, like, I don't know, LA, is it like a Skid Row situation? Are people putting up tents? Are they, I mean, you said, Andrew, earlier on, it reminds you of the squatters thing. People move into derelict buildings, and in some countries, it's hard to get them out anyway. Is that happening? Have you seen evidence of this, Craig? Or do you know?
Oddly enough, this morning when I drove into, I'm in my office today because I've got somebody coming in, and my office is in central Pattaya, but I live over on the dark side, about 7-8 kilometers. And oddly enough that you say that, and of course I didn't even know that was going to be a point of discussion today, but when I was driving in, I did notice 3 or 4 people on Third Road again, which is, in the middle of the town, sleeping. And it actually occurred to me, that's unusual. I don't see 3 or 4 people sleeping on the street at this time of the morning on a normal drive-in. As far as, this aspect of people getting together and staying in abandoned buildings, it's not something that I've seen, but I mean, it can certainly be well believable, because it's clear that people have no ability to earn money, and when you have no ability to earn money, you have no ability to pay rent, and if you have no ability to pay rent, you don't have anywhere to stay. I mean,
and they don't have any money to get back to their hometown or whatever.
Well, it could be that. I mean, I recall on one of the previous chit chats, Brian mentioned that a lot of them maybe don't necessarily want to go home, but I mean I'm sure everyone could rustle up a few hundred baht to go home, but at the same time, maybe not everyone has got a home. Maybe some of the people are from here. I mean, yes, there's a lot of people from the provinces that work in places like Pattaya and I guess in Bangkok as well. But there will be some people where this is their home.
This leads on to another issue, because when people got no money, we all heard of this back in UK, is they borrow money from friends, family. That breaks up relationships. They can't pay it back. Everybody's got their own pain. Nobody wants to say no, help the family, this kind of thing. But then it also leads on to loan sharks. So this is going to be absolutely a massive issue. Banks are not giving loans to individuals. So if you are a daily worker or somebody who is not earning a lot of money, or was learning, the girls, maybe they get a base of 5,000 baht, 10,000 baht, but then they make all the money on the commissioning and things like that. So they're completely screwed. But it leads to another thing, is that it comes down to, not so much, isn't directly related to Pattaya, but I suppose it is as well, it's countrywide, is a lot of people who have got COVID or have symptoms do not want to go to these, how can I say, hangars with cardboard beds. So a lot of people are not even admitting they've got it. So there's a lack of control. Now, the homeless, if they get it, they think they've got a flu, they've got a cold. People keep away from them. They're scared to go to the doctor. Why? Because they think it's going to cost them money, and they don't have any money, and they may be turned away. There has been cases of private hospitals turning people away, which they shouldn't do. But then the very thought of, let's say, for example, you do have the money, the first thing they do is they put you in a hospital or how can I say, internment camp for people.
Well, there's the hospital now, isn't there? The new term, which is a hotel which has been set up as a hospital, which I think is an option as well. But like you say, I mean, people that have symptoms, many people, even Westerners and whatever, they're going to be less likely to want to go and put themselves forward, because you have the 14-day forced quarantine. And I was chatting to a client of mine yesterday who had to go through that, and he had his wife and his son in a room next door. All 3 of them had tested positive. He did have some fairly severe symptoms for the first, he said, 4 or 5 days, and then they eased. His wife and son were completely asymptomatic, but all were forced to stay in this for a 14-day period in rooms next to each other, and they weren't allowed to see each other. Now, this was at Bangkok Pattaya Hospital, so he was checking out yesterday, and the bill was 250,000 for him alone. So if his wife and his child is going to be the same, then it's going to be, just to add, it looks like his insurance, which he bought through me, by the way, paid for it all. So just to be aware, and I don't want to get into a big insurance situation, because quite frankly, no one actually knows the answers. But in this case, he seemed to be okay. But he didn't just say that the situation was obviously a dreadful one for all concerned, being imprisoned, if you like. But he said the way that you were treated by sort of minister from the health ministry, it was pretty severe as well. You were interrogated to the point of who you'd spent time with, when you'd spent them. He was called on 3 or 4 occasions afterwards, just for him to confirm that he'd given all the information, and that it was quite an aggressive approach, he said, and just added to the whole nightmare scenario.
Well, going back to what you were saying just now about and I've had it from Thai people saying, no, we haven't got any symptoms, but we may be asymptomatic or whatever. So what we're doing is not getting tested, but we're acting very carefully. We're staying in our house. We're wearing masks whenever we should do, and blah, 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 because we don't want to get tested. So we'll ride this out by not being tested. Maybe we do get it, but as long as we're not serious, we'll ride it out in the house. We'll take the paracetamol.
Which is basically the advice globally, isn't it? I mean, self-isolating and that type of thing is the advice globally. And
but the problem is, if you take that track of thought, you're going to be longer under those. So, say if you go and get tested and you're negative, you can come out and you can be a little bit freer with your lifestyle. But
then you might catch it the next day. And then what do you do? Get tested again?
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking that a lot of Thais are just completely hibernating. You go to the roads around where we are, which are normally busy. It's ghost town. No one's going out because no one wants to get it, or no one wants to go and get tested. So they're almost behaving as if they have it. Yeah, and they are just,
The issue, I mean, especially it'll be the case down in Pattaya or Rayong, yeah, is that you've got factories and exports in Thailand have actually increased, yeah.
I saw that. Yeah, I read that.
It's all service-based. So what you've got is all the factory workers, because the factories have to operate, going to work and mixing. This is why the private companies have now got the right to purchase the vaccines for their staff, and the estimate is going to cost the companies at least 1,000 baht per person. Yeah. So there's that risk as well, and that's close quarters. You're in a factory, for goodness sake. I mean, you can't have social distancing in that situation.
The wet markets, which have never really been sort of highlighted as places.
They have. That's because in Samut Sakhon, that was the first big one, was through the wet markets.
But there's no restrictions, though. There's no restrictions. Not in this area. There hasn't been. I mean, we've got a number of large markets of that type on the way home, and of course, my wife shops there from time to time, and yes, everybody's wearing masks, but social distancing doesn't take place, and at busy times like the 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning, as normal markets are busy, you get a lot of people in there, and there appears to be there's no kind of. I remember, I think during the first, even in the wet markets, possibly I don't recall exactly, but there was a situation where so many in, so many out. That's not something which has been brought into play because
it's not being managed. Yes.
So, wasn't the last big outbreak? We had first of all the immigrants coming over from Burma to here. Then we had the Hysos living it up in Tonglaw and Egamai, which seems to be they're getting blamed for the whole spread of the country. But there was a wet market in Nakhon somewhere, Sakhon, which was immigrants. Yeah, it was Burmese immigrants.
It was in the marketplace, the fish market. Yeah, that's what it was. And then people bought there and then went up all over the country to distribute. Can I just bring up a couple of things just on Pattaya outside COVID, just for a moment? Yeah, me, I tried to get all the bits and pieces, try to get the bits and pieces in. I saw that in Walking Street, a lovely picture has been placed at the entrance, which is basically showing a notice that explaining that they're going to put all the cables under the road, yeah, underground. So it's taken from the pylons, yeah. But also the one where they had a picture underneath of a futuristic architectural design of how they're changing it, basically knocking down everything. All leases will not be renewed on the water side, yeah. And there's a consortium of Thais and foreigners, which this is quoted from the Pattaya Mail. Again, thank you. That the consortium from the Eastern Seaboard Investors Group, whatever it is, and they're going to be changing all that. But the funny thing is, there's been nothing announced on that, yeah. So this seems to be a bit of an issue, but also they're expecting to put a cruise ship terminal in there, SkyTrain going there, a zoo, yeah. It's pretty much a zoo already, but different animals. Yeah.
Jungle.
Jungle. A children's park. Say no more about that. And then restaurants. Yeah. Restaurants. Yeah. So they're changing the whole thing, and their target market, which I thought was quite interesting, they're saying is they've got a vision of aiming at families, but more Asian-based, Southeast Asia, Asia-based as opposed to.
I was just going to ask, when you said there was foreign investment, does it allude to whether that investment is Chinese or not? Because I think that's where my money would be.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably. I think the allude is the correct word. Yeah,
but I think we've discussed. So just interject there, because we've discussed this, haven't we, in depth in the past? And I think it was all in agreement that actually, utilising that area in that way, certainly in the daytime, is a good idea. It's just whether or not you're able to kind of turn a switch and it still be able to be the kind of naughty entertainment district that it is in the evening time or in the night time, or whether or not the sort of naughty entertainment would have to be moved elsewhere. But,
well, I think this is what it's alluding to. All right, so another bit of news is Coal Iron is shut down and it won't open until the 20th of May. And a big thing which we covered before is that, and I think our show must have persuaded the authorities, is they're doing a big cleanup. So there's a massive cleanup going across Pattaya, where all the rubbish that is covering the drains and things like that for flooding are being cleaned. They're cleaning the drains, which means probably they've got the guys out of the prison with their big metal buckets and slop in there.
And the blue shirts.
Yeah, and they're just doing a big cleanup to prepare for the rainy season. Do you think that's going to make a difference, Craig?
I mean, you've got to do something, and you might as well do it whilst the time is now, and there's not a lot of people about. So whether it makes a difference or not, I don't know. I mean, I'm no engineer. I mean, as you know, with Pattaya in certain areas, as in lots of parts of Thailand, it struggles with flooding in the flash rains. I mean, my soy where my office on struggles, as does a couple of the others around. I don't know whether there's I noticed they are doing work on this, on the drainage. When you drive around, you see a lot of work going on. Whether it will work in the long term, and I just don't know. But I guess now's the time to do it, when it's not disturbing the tourists, and it's not
I think we
in the way of.
I've got one question, which would be a good way to end this if everyone's happy, if they've said enough. I'd like to pose this question to both Craig and Andrew, all right? We had this first sort of wave, and we were really lucky compared with many other countries. But we took all the rules and regulations, and a lot of businesses were lost or shut down temporarily, some forever. But there was a light at the end of the tunnel, like, we're getting out of the woods and we're beginning to get back to normal. Phuket's going to open to tourists, and we're going to see their model, and other resorts like Pattaya and Hua Hin, they'll follow suit. And it was almost, I had this feeling like we're going to get back to normal. And then suddenly, it's the worst figures that we've had ever since the pandemic started. How many times can businesses bounce back? So my question to you is, do you think Pattaya is going to be completely different after we get through this pandemic, in the sense of businesses, ownership, infrastructure? Do you think a lot of places will close, get knocked down or taken over? What is your view of Pattaya, say at Christmas, say January 2022? That's my question.
Well, I think the first thing is, you talk about getting through this. I mean, the big question there is, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, no one knows when we are going to get through this. I mean, it appears from what we're seeing that countries, UK, Israel, setting good examples. I was chatting to a fellow actually yesterday who's based in Dubai, and he was saying 75% of the population have been vaccinated over there. So, you are seeing situations where people are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and it seems that the only way you're going to get there is through the vaccination programs. Regardless of what you think about that, that is the only way you're going to get through. So I think that's the question, which is obviously a topic for another day, is how the vaccination program is going to be rolled out in Thailand, how quickly, how effectively. When it does happen, and you do see the light at the end of the tunnel, whether that's, as I say, this time next year, whether it's 18 months away, again, nobody knows whether it's Christmas, whether it's January. It all depends on the effectiveness of the vaccine rollout. I believe that Pattaya will bounce back better and stronger. Yes, there will be There's so many people that enjoy the offerings that this city has that haven't been able to enjoy it because of the recent situation, the pandemic, and they'll be coming back immediately. They'll be coming back with more money in their pocket, and ultimately longer term, with these new developments like you mentioned on Walking Street and the whole Eastern Seaboard as a region having a lot of money invested in the infrastructure, I have no doubt it will become the great, fun, excellent city that it is again. But when is the question.
That's very insightful. Andrew, what's your view, closing off?
Okay, I think the vaccination thing is very, very important. I think they're going to have testing kits which people can buy or get from somewhere, take home and test if they're feeling, so self-assessment, yeah. I think that's another thing, yeah. For the vaccination, yes, 70%. I think you're going to have problems with the vaccination because people are learning more and more about the pros and cons of some of the vaccinations, yeah. So some people will wait, and this is going to be hard. This is why they're basically not going into other alternatives. They're focusing on the ones that have been approved, etc. I think after this is going to be political mayhem, yeah, because I think there's going to be certain things have fallen through the cracks. I don't necessarily just mean Thailand. I mean everywhere else, vested interests and things like that. And I think especially in Thailand, the politically, I think that people will take advantage of that. Yeah. So the vaccination, we have to get the vaccination done. I think we're going to have a movement which is going to cause other issues of this vaccination card, because people are going to start claiming racism and people who have and have not and things like that. But it may get to the point even where you go to a club or you go to a pub and you have to show your vaccination card before you get in. It could. I think it will get to that point if they don't bring this under control, because this vaccination is for the existing strains, and some of the vaccinations are better with the South African, the Kent, and now the new Indian strain than others. So it's an ongoing process of getting boosters. So this is something we're going to consider. I know I'm sort of.
Well, that's
it's never going to end. But the thing is that the whole society is going to society is going to get used to having it. And the point is, there will be, if you get sick, like for example, if you get bad flu or pneumonia, there will be medicines that you're going to have to deal. You'll be able to get to deal with it to reduce the symptoms. Yeah, just like you have for flus, general flus just now. Yeah, I think, but people are going to be more aware of health and of others. Yeah.
Okay, so we got into that area of vaccinations, which is great for another show, but absolutely true what you said. I think what Craig said was very optimistic and positive, and I agree with him that it will bounce back. Pattaya will bounce back stronger,
for sure, yeah,
and a bit more together and everything else. So on that note, I'd like to finish on a positive one. Craig, thank you very much, because I know you must be busy at the moment. I don't know how your business is doing down there, and I guess you do a lot of stuff on the telephone and emails, and I don't know, are you working from home?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, a lot of my business is face to face, so I'm struggling in that area because I'm meetings are being postponed until COVID is over. So I mean, I'm still going, but I think without wanting to sort of harp on about it, the first outbreak, I think a lot of us kind of took stock, and we were able to deal with what was going on. And on the health insurance side of the business, that boomed. So things were fine. This time, if I'm honest, it's a little bit more worrying for me. So we keep our fingers crossed that it won't last too long.
Hang in there, mate. I hope everything goes well. Thanks, Andrew. I miss being beside you with the brick wall behind me. But
oh, honey, I miss you too. Yeah.
I know, but at least I'm at home. I can cook myself some dinner now. So, okay, thanks very much. Now, we'll end it by saying if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, then that would help us a lot, because we need subscriptions to grow the channel. Liking and sharing helps as well. And also leave your comments below, because Andrew, he loves reading them. So do I, and we reply to all of them. So on that note, stay safe. Bangkok Chit Chat. See you again soon.
All right, see you later.
Gents. See you later. Bye.